At least once a day, every day, somebody asks me about getting sponsored. Now, the word sponsorship, it's often misused in our industry. A lot of people don't know what it means to actually be sponsored. Does it mean free parts and get to build your dream car in somebody else's dollar? Well, not really. So today what we're going to do is discuss sponsorship, what it means, and how it relates to the Mustang industry. We'll start off by talking about what it means to actually be sponsored. Now, whether you're looking to be sponsored by a retailer like CJ's or a manufacturer like MBRP here, the basic deal is the same. It is a mutually beneficial agreement between two parties. And the mutually beneficial is the important part. We'll touch on that a little bit more later. But basically, sponsorship comes in many forms. If you think, hey, I'm just going to get free parts for putting a sticker on my car, fortunately, you're sadly mistaken. It's very important that the company also gets something back out of the deal, and that's part of the job of you trying to be sponsored to make sure you're making it worthwhile for that company. And sponsorship does not mean free parts either. Some cases you might get free parts, it might be free labor, but a lot of times it's a discount. You may get parts at employee cost or a discount off the normal retail price where the company is going to help you out. One thing I definitely want to mention too is if you do talk to these companies and you ask for sponsorship and they do offer you something, make sure you take advantage of it. And the next thing I'm going to touch on, and what I'm sure you guys are going to want to hear, is how do you go about getting sponsored? Now, I'm going to tell you right now, there's a lot of avenues to sponsorship. There's no definite trail, there's no path, there's no map to get everything the way you want it. There's a lot of different ways you can get sponsored. Now, I'm going to start off with a couple different things, and we'll kind of work our way into the ways to not get sponsored at the same time. Now, as far as how to get sponsorship, be professional. A private message, a DM, a text message is not professional. You're going to want to come up with something that is unique and explains exactly what you offer that company or that retailer that they don't have already and can't do themselves. You know, I'm going to put your sticker on my car and go to car shows. We can do that ourselves. The other thing a lot of people focus on is Instagram and social media followers, which is a huge deal. But we know that you can buy followers. Just because you have a ton of them, what we want to see is how you interact with your followers. You know, are these people actually listening to what you're doing, following what you're doing, or are they just clicking and liking, moving on? Now that's, again, a big part in actually getting sponsored is, again, what you give back to the company. We don't want to just see you have the followers, we want to see you actually use them as they should be used. Another thing that's important to getting a sponsor is to already use that company's parts. Whether it's a manufacturer's parts or retail parts, you want to make sure you are using their items and actually like the product before you go asking for a discount or any kind of a free item. Like if you contact CJ's and say, hey, I'd love you guys to sponsor me, I love CJ Pony Parts, I'm going to look you up on our database. If you haven't bought from us, you're probably not going to get an answer from us. And manufacturers are the same way. Now, if you're using part A on your car, don't call part B and say, hey, this is the best part ever. Use the parts that you want to be sponsored with. And make sure you choose the companies, again, that sell the things you want. You know, we've seen people before that send a flat form letter to 30 different companies trying to get sponsorship. We know you're just looking for money or free parts. You're not actually interested in using our products. We're not going to be interested. Make sure that when you contact this company, you are focused on their products, what they offer, and make sure it's something that you actually want to use. Another important part to consider if you're trying to be sponsored is to make sure you have the right car. Now, I love Fox body Mustangs, but Foxes are tough to get sponsored because it's an older car. Pretty much anything that can be done in that car has probably already been done. You know, the hottest thing right now in our industry is the S550, in particular the 2018. And these are the latest and greatest cars, these are the newest cars, and these are the ones that sponsors want to see their parts on. Another thing to make sure you keep in mind is to make sure you can afford to be sponsored. And that sounds funny because sponsors are going to help you, but if you couldn't afford to build the car yourself, you probably can't afford to be sponsored either. Now, if these companies help you out, they're going to expect you to go to shows, go to events, hold up your end of the bargain. If you can't afford to do that, you can't afford to be sponsored. Okay, so now we're going to talk about ways to guarantee that you are not going to get sponsored. And one of them, like I said, no PMs, no DMs. Sending a message like, hey bro, will you sponsor me, with sponsor spelled wrong, it's not going to get you anywhere. We get tons of those a day, barely even read them most of the time. Again, if you want to be sponsored, be professional, come up with a proposal. Another thing, don't be an ass. No. You see people all the time that are looking for sponsorship, looking for support. These guys are trolling online, they're causing fights, they're causing problems. You gotta remember, if we put our name on your car, not only representing us when you're at events, you're also doing it when you're online. So make sure you act appropriately if you want a company to support you. Another thing I mentioned earlier is make sure you can afford it. The worst thing a sponsor can do is give parts to somebody who can't fulfill their end of the bargain. So if you can't build the car and you're making GoFundMe pages to get a supercharger or a turbo or air for your car, well, guess what? That's also never going to get you sponsored. And like I mentioned before too, if you reach out to a company, there's a company you want to work with, and they offer you something, make sure you take it. If you say, oh, that's not a big enough discount, or that's not what I was looking for, oh, it's not free, well, guess what? This is a billion-dollar industry, but in the end, it is fairly small, and a lot of us companies do talk to each other, and if that's happening a lot, we're gonna know about it. Now we're gonna give you some examples of sponsored cars. Now this is my SEMA car, and a lot of videos we've done with my cars in the past, I have the stickers on there, and people have commented about the stickers and why they're there, and they take away from the car. Well, they're there because they are sponsors. Now in this case, these sponsors have made a donation to my charity to get their name on the car, so it is a little bit different than a normal automotive sponsorship. And as far as people that CJs have worked with in the past, we have a couple different options, and everybody that we've sponsored in the last year, they brought something unique to the table, and that's what really made them work with them. The first one is Zach with his RS. Now Zach, we found out about Zach because he was racing with some of our employees in SCCA Autocross. Now he's out there taking his car and using it as it was built for and really doing well in his class. That's somebody we want to get on board with. He's actually very well known in the industry as a very nice guy who will also help out anybody he can, and that's important as well. The next example is Josh's 2018 Mustang GT. Now in this case, we have a couple 2018s here, but we really weren't looking to get into drag racing. We still wanted to support somebody who was, simply because the 18 drag scene has gotten very, very huge. You know, Josh, again, is really well known in the industry as a very stand-up guy who really works well with companies, so he was an easy choice to support us for 2018 drag racing. The next one here is Julie's Mustang GT. Now this one is again a unique situation. It's somebody that we knew about from social media. And again, that's something to keep in mind. A lot of times, if you're really, really worth sponsoring, we're going to find you as opposed to you coming to us. Julie's case was simple. She takes her Mustang to a lot of events Mustang people don't always go to. You know, Formula Drift events, Import Alliance events, stuff like that, where she gives us basically a face at events that normally a company like CJ's really wouldn't be involved in. And the last one falls under the unique category for sure. This is an 87 Cougar powered by a Coyote with an MT82. These guys work across the street from us and run under the team Drunken Squirrel Racing. They take this 87 Cougar and race it all over the country in chump car events, Lemons events, and a bunch of other actual serious racing events where this car can lap vets and all kinds of real high performance cars. And don't be fooled by the looks, the car is obviously funny as hell to look at. This is a serious race car that's very competitive with its Coyote power plant. Another car that we're happy to support. Now sponsorship is obviously a huge topic we could talk about for hours, but our goal here is to give you the basics so you have a better idea what you're getting into if you are trying to get sponsored. Now again, just because you reach out to me doesn't mean that CJ's is going to sponsor you, but take your time and do your research, put a better proposal together, you'll have a much better chance.